They not ready. Welcome to Real Talk Radio, the show that says just because you don't attend with them does not mean that you're not in Him. The Him being Jesus. The show that plants seeds and water seeds, but God gives the increase. Let's talk about it on Real Talk Radio. This show is a continuation of the church folk revolution. Enjoy the show.
Yo.
Won't he do it?
Oh.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome, one and all, to another exciting episode of Real Talk Radio. We appreciate your time and your presence with us. You feel me? It's Real Talk Radio.
We also appreciate your talent and your resources. You understand what I'm saying?
Now give it to the call.
Pay to play.
If you would like to call in today, you will have to give us a seed offering in order to be a participant in this show, because it is pay to play day on Real Talk Radio.
Hey, man.
You feel?
Hey, Rob.
Yo.
Rob.
Yes, sir.
Get the collision plate on that side. Get the plate on that side.
Right.
Some of y'all gonna get that.
Yeah, I get it. Today is February 8th, 2015, and we are talking about you gotta pay to play. The games that people play to go to the next level in ministry, or to simply operate in any capacity within the church. Or on the other end, how about I won't play unless you pay me. So, I mean, it's pay to play either way it goes. So we're going to dig into that today. So sit back, grab your Bibles and your seatbelts, because we have an exciting show for you today. And we're going to get into it, man. Pay to play. And there's more than one way that you can pay. Not just money, which is a big part of it.
That's
but
right.
there are other ways that you have to pay to play, to go to the next level, or, like we said earlier, to operate in any capacity within the church. Or you can just be a pew sitter, but you're still going to pay. You heard me? So one of you brothers go ahead and pray us in, man.
Go ahead, John.
Most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you. We thank you for being God Almighty. We thank you for your wonderful sacrifice on the cross. We thank you for loving us. Lord, we ask, oh God, that you come, we know you're here with us, Lord. We ask that our words be seasoned today with salt. We ask that the hearers be edified. Lord, we thank you. We bless you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And ladies and gentlemen, you know we do joke around and we laugh a lot and we play around a lot, but, some of this stuff is real serious because if we don't laugh and don't kid around, some people will act like we just big, I hate to use this word, but big meanies just jumping on the church. But we have to expose some of this stuff to get people to think and to start thinking about some of the things we do. A lot of people will rationalize giving their money, their time, and their talent, saying that they're doing it for God, or doing it to God. I'm doing this to God. I'm giving my money to God. I'm doing this in service to God. I'm doing this. But in reality, you're doing it in service to the church. And that's just the real. That's just really what it is. Because you don't want to be seen as not a quote-unquote team player or rebellious or whatever excuse somebody will label you with. So I'm gonna let one of these other brothers go on, because I can go ahead in, so I don't want to be greedy. So, Elgin, give us your thoughts, brother.
Well, the pay-to-play aspect is one of those things that everybody in the church knows, but very few are able to talk about. It's part of the culture where there are things that you actually have to give up in order to either A, make it to the next level in ministry, B, to show that you are that you want to remain in that position in ministry. It's a very pervasive thing. And when we talk about it being other things besides money, there's your dreams that you give up, goals that you give up, your own personal desires that you give up, all to remain in the position that you desire to be in. It's a deep topic, and I'm looking forward to it, and I don't want to share too much more, man, because I can be like Nathan and just go on with this joint because it frustrates me so. Next, Rob, what's your thoughts, bro?
It's very important, man, because people give up their dignity, their very dignity, man. People give up their, it costs a lot sometimes. In some cases, depending on where you are, it costs a whole lot to be able to play, to be able to have a position in ministry. And one of the things that we want to talk about is the mentality that goes into fostering those desires to be in the ministry to an extent that you have a lofty title or you have a good paying position inside of the church system, inside of a particular ministry. What are the desires? What are your true motivation? What's your true motivation to be able to get into the game per se? You understand what I'm saying? So we want to look at that too, because that plays a big part into what people are willing to sacrifice and compromise in order to be in ministry. I mean, it's very costly, and it's not just money.
Mhm. And as far as me, you have to pay money to play a game that you're not actually guaranteed to win.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's kind of like a gamble.
Yeah.
You're gambling that you're going to make it big time. You're going to blow up. You got to pay in. It takes money to make money. And when we say pay to play, when we're talking about this, we're looking at the aspect of being in leadership in the church setting and having what's the word I'm looking for? Not necessarily a command, but, there's something you just have to, if you don't tithe, you can't be part of this leadership team.
Mm.
So if you want to be part of the leadership team, you have to pay. But it's dressed up. It's not. They don't tell you that you're paying. They tell you this is what God requires. Is that extortion? If you want to do this, if you want to be part of this, you got to pay. If you ain't paying, you're gonna have a hard road. You better go out and do your own thing. But then when you do, you start to do the same thing to other people, what was done to you, because that's how the system works. And you learn the system, and you follow the rules of the system.
Yeah. LL, bro, you live with us. What's your thoughts on the topic, homie?
This is in the same regards that you brothers just dropped on. It seems no matter what you do for the kingdom of God, there's always a nominal fee that will go along with it. Not a fee, then half of your soul. Something has to give in order for you to serve. Not what Jesus did for you. It's always a bit more. So either you're going to come out of your pride, your intent to actually do something good for the person, that has to be put aside. But if you don't pay it, if you don't cover us, so we can cover you, you are in this church. And
I think the thing, man, that really gets me, and and it vexes me completely is because Jesus does not require you to pay anything. He didn't call you to pay. He didn't enlist you to pay anything. That wasn't what he determined and decided when he lived his life, when he died, when he rose. His life, death, and resurrection was payment enough to fulfill all that you would need. Full and complete payment. And what the church has done, the church has attempted to supersede Jesus' sacrifice and demand you to do something as a way of showing that you're not necessarily a part of the body of Christ, but more importantly, that you are with them. And you're paying these people, man. And there's tons of stories and instances that we can give of people paying in various ways. And the list can go from financially to sexually to emotionally to mentally to spiritually. All of these things people use to pay for a place in the church system.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things. So let's take the financial aspect for a moment. We already know that if you are a member of a church, the church is going to, that teaches tithing, the church is going to want all of their members to tithe. That's just a prerequisite. As a member, they're going to want you to tithe.
Yep.
Okay? That's a prerequisite. But here's where it gets tricky. When you become a part of the leadership team, whether that be usher or a associate minister or any of those things, whatever type of ministry that you are in, okay, or the type of leadership position that you are in, now that tithe means so much more than you just being a member. Because if you don't tithe as a member, yeah, they're going to look at you side-eyed. You know, they're going to whisper behind your back. You know, they're going to use that as a barometer to determine whether you're ready for leadership. You know what I mean? But when you become a part of the leadership team, no matter what level, whether you are on the hospitality ministry or whether you are sitting in the pulpit, that tithe is for you to remain in that position. Let you be a member of the leadership team in whatever capacity, and you don't tithe. You know what's going to happen? You know what's going to take place? They're going to begin to question your desire to whether or not you actually want to be on the leadership team. They're going to question whether you actually have what it takes to be on the leadership team. Then, if you're not tithing, they're going to remove you from the leadership team.
Yep. And I am a living example of what Elgin is talking about. Because the reason that I actually left the church was because I told the pastor that I would no longer tithe. And that's the reason. And he said, well, you know what? You don't have to tithe. But you can no longer be an elder at this church if you don't tithe. You can go now. Mind you, when I was in this church, I was it was two elders, me and another elder, and then the pastor. So I was like, I guess you can call me third in charge at this church. And when I told him this, I wrote a 4-page letter, gave it to him. I was over the jail ministry. I was over the praise and worship team. I was over the audio-visual ministry, and I think it was a couple other things I was over as the elder. And the other elder had some responsibilities, evangelism stuff. He was over Sunday school, different things. But he told me that, no, I didn't have to tithe, but I would just be a regular member. I could go to the jail with the other team, but I couldn't speak. I could just come down and sit down. I could never preach. I could never teach. I could never do anything until I started tithing again. See, that's that pay to play that we don't see, especially if you're not in leadership. If you're just sitting in the pews and you come to church every Sunday, you don't see this side of ministry. You don't get it. Oh, I used to go, oh, the pastor preached good, the praise and worship was off the hook. You don't see this side of it. And we understand that the church needs money to operate. We get it, because it is a business after all. Whether you agree with that or not, it is a business. It needs money to operate. And this is my personal opinion. If you are a member of a church and you enjoy that church, you should, if able, financially support that church. Not with tithes, but just your money. You should support it. That's just my belief. Now, to demand that you do it for you to be in leadership, not just in leadership, but like as Elgin said, to operate in any capacity. Because as being over the praise and worship team, I actually wrote a contract for all the praise and worship team members to sign. Now, they had to keep themselves sexually pure. They had to be, they couldn't miss more than 2 practices a month. And one of the biggest things is they had to be a tithing member in good standing. And everybody signed that thing without question.
Explain the good standing part for me, though.
You had to, you couldn't miss no more than, it was 2 or 3 weeks worth of tithes. You couldn't have back tithes. Like, you couldn't be missing a lot of tithes. You couldn't. That's just what the part of it was. Now, I wasn't over the tithing. I didn't do the finance at this church. But the lady who did it, she could tell who tithed because, like I said, you either a tithe number, they give you're assigned a number in some churches where they give you a box of envelopes, and each week you'll turn it in, but your number is assigned to your name, so they can go look at this name. Okay, this is Elder Bolton. He gave this much money. And that way they can keep track so they can tell the IRS or whatever, because they had to give out statements at the end of the year on how much you gave so that you can write it off on your taxes as a charitable donation, which I did, by the way, every year. And so being in good standing, you couldn't be missing a lot of your tithes. Now, they didn't say you had to tithe every week or every 2 weeks, but you couldn't be missing a lot of tithes. And that's what I meant by tithing in good standing. But there was no really... to say that, and that Elder brings it up, there really was no standard to say if you're this far back, then you're not in good standing. There was no standard. There was no rule or law to say what in good standing was. And I'm glad you brought that up, Elder, because there was none.
It was very subjective.
It was subjective, right. It was subjective. And probably up to the pastor's discretion on whether you were a good... Because me, back then, I was an independent contractor, so I didn't have a steady paycheck where my check was the same every day. So I was paid by what I did. So, and I drove a truck, and so if I had a short delivery week, guess what? My paycheck was short, so my tithe would be short. If I had a great week, then my deliveries would be great, and my tithe would be greater. So mine fluctuated. So they could never say what I was doing or what I wasn't doing. But that's what it was. So like I said, it is subjective. But I wrote that out every week. And as Elder said, I'm a living example of if you don't pay, sit your butt down. You got to pay to play. And this is just the financial aspect of it. So anybody else?
Rob, what you think, bro?
I haven't. Well, I was going to say I haven't experienced it. I haven't experienced it in the sense that I was actually trying to get a paid position inside of a ministry, but I know people that have applied for positions, actual paid positions inside of a ministry, that were told that they had all of the qualifications that they were looking for. They, your resume looks fantastic. We know you. You're a great person. You're very well qualified for this position. But we took a look at your tithing record. And we noticed some inconsistency, and we wanted to know what was going on with this, couple of months right here where you weren't tithing and this, that, and the third. Long story short, this person did not get that position. Now, they were told that they were the most qualified person for this job. So quality-wise, the qualifications-wise, they were top notch. But the tithing record was a concern. Now, even in volunteer positions in the ministry, you're oftentimes asked to fill out some type of volunteer form where they're basically interviewing you and asking you questions about your qualifications. And guess what? The tithing question pops up. Are you a faithful tither? Are you a consistent tither? And see, that's something where they're asking you questions that they actually already know the answer to, because they can go pull your tithing record. You understand what I'm saying? So it's definitely a mentality that you actually have to pay to get in the game. You got to pay to volunteer. You know what I'm saying? Let alone for paid positions. So I mean I've definitely seen that. Say it again.
No, I was interjecting. I'm sorry, but before John and LL contribute to this financial aspect of the conversation, I want to bring up another aspect to it when it comes to, there are a lot of churches within the community that I live, in the black community that I live. There's tons of churches, man. The number of churches is actually ridiculous for the amount of people. It's just ridiculous. But what I've noticed is, because it's such a environment with a low socioeconomic status, there's a lot of poverty where I live. This pay-to-play actually plays a part in there also. If you are a member of a church and you fall on hard times financially, I've known many churches to use your tithing records as a standard of whether or not they would give you assistance. So if you're not somebody who faithfully tithe to a church, and you fall on hard times, and you tend to attempt to go to that particular church and ask for assistance, it's a very good chance that church will not help you out financially because you have never tithed into that church. So that's a dynamic that is also very much a problem. I mean, a lot of churches won't they won't help you if you're not a faithful tither to that church.
Yes, I've seen that too. Yeah.
And I just wanted to add that, man. Mm-hmm. John, LL, let's get your thoughts on it, man, because that just blows me away.
Piggybacking on what some of you guys said, man, when you think about mega churches, that's it. Rob has the experience with the mega churches. In the smaller churches, it's not like that. It's a lot more political in the smaller churches. When I talk about it's political, that means it's who you know how good you are, what you can do. Because a lot of the smaller churches, they're not really salary positions. You know what I'm saying? The pastor may, do what they do with the money. Whoever the pastor's leadership team is, they may know what's going on, but a lot of times it's just the pastor or his family, and this is really the small churches. So it may be a small church, maybe, 20, 30 members. There's a lot of churches out there like that. And they still have to pay to play. The same teaching still applies, but most of their positions are volunteer. And even in some churches, even some of these small churches, the pastor doesn't, quote unquote, take a salary for the church. There are churches out there like that. But they still require you to tithe, and they still require you to give in your offerings. Not necessarily giving an offering, but they require you to tithe, and they want you to give an offering. And not only just the offering, there's always different types of offerings that come up. Always something different. There's a pastor's anniversary they're always looking for money for the building fund. There's always something out there, and Rob likes to talk about, there's something tangible for the people, a goal. Gives people a goal or something to achieve. And you have multiple goals. Next month, coming up in 4 months, you got the pastor's anniversary coming up. So start saving up money. Every family member is required to give a certain amount, or every single person is required to give a certain amount, and you have 4 months to get this amount in. Please see Sister So-and-so.
Yeah.
You got to pay to play. And you got to go, and if you're volunteering, you have to put your time into it. You have to go to these practices and make sure things are done right. And you have to do this, and you got to, put all of this time and effort into it, and you're paying to do so. because you believe that this is what God requires of you.
Mm-hmm.
He requires this is your service to God. But it's not. Like Johnson said, you are serving the church. And we talk about serving the church, we're talking about the institutional system of church.
Good point.
You say it's about people, but it's not really about the people. It's about the system. We're serving the system. We're serving the church. Even pastors serve the system. Now, they reap a lot of benefits for their service to the system, but even they serve the system. When we talk about people, Elden loves to share his stories about when he was in church, how he was people-oriented. He didn't care about this, that, and the other. He told a story on one show about how they was upset with him because he talked in his normal lingo to people. Jonathan talks about how he joked around a lot and people understood who he was. They didn't look at him as big bad Elder Bolton. They looked at him as Brother Jonathan because of his personality. It's people-driven. I never wanted people to call me Elder Bolton. When I introduced myself, I said, my name is John. I'm an elder at this church. I didn't say I'm Elder Bolton here. We forget about the people and the service part of it. I'm on my soapbox. Go ahead, LL.
LL, where you at, home?
Barely.
Barely.
Hey, can you hear me better now?
P, hold it down.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we got you.
That's a lot better.
Yeah,
So
John,
jokes for days, LL.
Pretty much. I see. Just that. And I think, piggybacking off of you, John, that a lot of that goes under the guise of you're doing this for the movement of the kingdom, or the kingdom can't move without your finances. So that's the biggest push of it all. It's the financial aspect is as if, like, you know how back in the day they used to always have the church goals, that little red painting on a wall, or some thermometer looking thing where they added on to it each time you got up to a number, and you never completed it. You never did. Like 5-10 years later, you're still in the same church. Everyone is still put like coins and $5 bills. I even saw a $2 bill in one once. But that aside, that's how the kingdom of the movement of the kingdom is for most of these pastors. When they say, let's do something, you give us money in order to grow as a member in this body, as if you already are not a part of a body already. Like you come out of being just a pew sitter into this flamboyant area where it's like, you know, you go to an airport where you pay for first class seating. You don't sit with the other people that are also going to fly on this plane. They give you this lounge area where you get plush seating and you get, you know, champagne or something before you get on the plane. Then you get your first class seat. It's almost like that's what they're manipulating the church to be, when they want you to give up something in order to grow as a different member of this body of believers who are now bigger for the kingdom and the movement of the kingdom than anyone else that just sits normally in the pews. And so it starts with tithes. It then starts with you giving up more money because you have to buy specific clothing in order to look the part. And they're going to teach you how to talk the part, and you're going to learn how to walk the part. And that's going to differentiate you between everybody else, but you're still giving money. And then subsequently, as John was saying, you may start to benefit from everyone else that's sitting in the pew still that give money. Maybe some of that might trickle down to you, pyramid scheme style. And then, you know, you then want to grow more because now you're trying to push to be the pastor because that's where all the big bucks go, you know, and that's just how that goes. That stream of money is what really makes people want to grow in a church. But it's not about the people. It's never been about helping another person. It's just been about this display of we're better than you. This, if you want to join, if you want to look like us and talk like us, you want these tailored suits and these pimped out cars, and you got to run that money. And it's no guarantee on how much money it is, but it seems that you'll be paying all your life to try to be one of these people. And one way or another, you're going to pay by money or you're going to pay by your soul again.
Mm. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And here's
just funny.
Go ahead, Robert.
No, I was just gonna say it's just funny how we make this point often, man. A lot of this stuff always comes back to some type of monetary gain for the system, man, and those that are involved. It never ceases to amaze me, really. And that's all I wanted to say, man. Go ahead, bro.
Okay, I was gonna say, and here's the rub. A lot of people, in the system, like Rob said, the system, it plays on your own greed.
Mm-hmm.
It plays on their own greed. So I want this position because it looks glamorous. I think it's something. I love the way that people admire Brother Rob sitting up there as an armor bearer. He looks tough. He looks like, he got some type of power. He's the armor bearer. I want to be that. So I'm going to play the game. I'm going to give my little tithes. Every time the doors of the church open, I'm going to be there. I'm going to give my money. I'm going to give this seed offering. I'm going to give that seed offering. I'm going to give my New Year's resurrection and my first fruit offering and all this stuff because I covet a position within the church. So a lot of it feeds off of your own greed, your own wants, your own needs. And the system knows this. Because while some people just give blindly because they think they're doing it to God, other people are doing it because they know that it's a means to an end. And if they do it right, then perhaps the pastor would bestow his favor upon me by allowing me to become an armor bearer, by allowing me to become a minister, by allowing me to be the one to serve the communion wine and whatever it is that you want to do, because it comes back to your own greed, your own wants, your own personal ambitions. And the system knows this. So, it goes along with it too.
Because the system fosters that, man. The system not only fosters that, it cultivates that type of culture for you to have to pay in some manner to be a part of the VIP section within the church. Somehow or another, in order to cross that red rope, you have to pay something. And that's part of the way the system is set up. So it's even to the mentality of, even if that's something that a pastor or those who are in leadership are unknowingly taking part in, it's because the culture in itself fosters that. It sets it up for you. It's absolutely impossible. You are going to pay something. You are going to pay something. And the thing is that those who actually know that a payment is required are the ones that you really have to be cautious about. You have to be cautious of them because now they determine what you're going to pay. If you are Sister Thick Thighs with no man who has a history of being sexually open, then you're going to pay that way. If you are the brother with the number of different businesses in the community, you're going to pay that way. If you're the hustler in the community who is trying to turn your life around, you're going to pay a completely different way. Somehow, some way, you are going to pay something because of the way the system is set up.
And
that's just the way it goes down.
Often we talk about how the system corrupts good men and it draws corrupt men to it. How it corrupts good men is just like how we're describing in this show. Because after a while, after having played the game for so long, then it suddenly creeps in and it gets into you, and you think that this is how it's supposed to be, and you're blinded because you still have a quote-unquote a good heart, and you still love the people, but you're putting this on them, making them pay, making them play. This is how good men become corrupted. But we fail to recognize that. We fail to understand that. This is why when we come against some of these good men, people get so upset.
Yeah.
Because he may be an actual good person, but he has been corrupted by the system. And as long as he remains in that system, he's going to continue to be corrupt unless he comes out completely detoxed from the system.
And John, it's not even just the fact that we are able to. I'm sorry, I thought you paused there, but let me. It's not just the fact that they are corrupted. We're able to see how the system is going to corrupt the good men. So a lot of times our message is a warning to these good pastors, because we on this show do not hold this mentality that every church is bad or that every pastor is a wolf just trying to manipulate and abuse the people that are in their pulpits. Mm-hmm. We understand that there are many who are within the system who are misguided and ignorant to the flaws of the system. Mm-hmm. So we serve as a warning to them, letting these good pastors know that, hey, listen, homie, at some point in time, you are going to be in a position where you're going to have to compromise. At some point in time, you're going to have to compromise what Jesus has done in order to either A, appease the system or appease your flesh. One to two. At some point in time, because the way the system's set up.
In order to go to that next level, you have to. I remember TJ often talking about him wanting to be the next T.D. Jakes. So he said he bought all his books, all his tapes, all his stuff in order to be the next T.D. Jakes, because it was within him, because that's what he wanted, to attain this position or this level of what he thought was glamorous. He paid all this money just to emulate Theodore Dexter Jakes. Now, how many other people are out there like that? A lot. There's a lot. There's a lot. And I'm glad Elsa just said what he said, because a lot of people will come and say, well, y'all just think that the people ain't supposed to give money. And I don't give for that reason. I just give because I'm trying to advance the kingdom, because I know my church is doing good work in the community, and I'm giving to God and blah, 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 and X, Y, Z, and ABC. But if you didn't give, would you still be allowed, and I use that word very blatantly, would you still be allowed to be Minister Jones? Would you still be allowed to sing in the choir? Would you still be allowed to preach a trial sermon? Would you still be allowed to be an usher or a deacon if you didn't give this money, if you didn't tithe regularly? And my question for you is, would God deny you the right to exercise your gift that he's given you now if you didn't give money to something? Would God?
And if you don't know,
they know. They know. They know. Everybody knows the answer to that. But the second part of the question is, will your church allow you to exercise your gifts? You are a teacher. You know you love to teach. But will your church allow you to teach if you aren't giving this money? If you aren't meeting the quote-unquote tithing standard, if you aren't in good standing, will you be allowed to operate within your church? Will you? You have to ask yourself that question. And if you answer that honestly, you already know the answer. And so then you have the choice to make. Will I continue to pay to play, or am I going to start my own church? But I don't think I really got enough knowledge to start my own. So I think I'll just go ahead and continue giving this money. And I'm going to rationalize it by saying I'm giving it to God to advance the kingdom for the work of the ministry. So that's the only way I'm going to look at it. I'm not going to look at it as if I'm paying to play. I'm going to look at it as me advancing the kingdom. And that's how a lot of people rationalize it. Whether they want to believe that or not. That's the truth. It's the truth.
Very true.
So, did y'all have anything else on that part?
As far as financial, no, I mean it's gonna come back up. So
it's all connected. Finances is the foundation for it all.
Yeah.
So there's other ways as well that I want to talk about. That you have to pay to play.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to. Your silence in a lot of things is a way that you pay to play. And I always think about Eddie Long and his board members who knew what he was doing with these young boys, but because they wanted to keep their position and because maybe their livelihood depended on this position, they had to keep silent. They couldn't say, well, Bishop, I think that you need to stop. You need to do this. Now you are complicit in this, and you are paying with your silence, and that's has a lot to do with your dignity. As a man, you knew what he was doing was wrong, but you couldn't say nothing because you really enjoy the perks of being one of Bishop Long's elders.
Yeah.
So your silence is a way to pay to play.
Particularly if you're within the inner circle. And that's something that I know Rob, I don't think Rob was ever in a position where he actually witnessed improprieties or things that are actually, just abuses of power. And he might have. But as an armor bearer, particularly if you are the armor bearer, you are often privy to those type of improprieties. And in order for you to remain in that particular position, your silence is required. As a matter of fact, he's going to tell you from the gate, now listen, what goes on here stays here. What I do stays between you and I. I don't need the First Lady, which is absolutely a nutty thing in the first place. I don't need the First Lady, the mother of the church, or, any of the deacons to know that I'm going to Atlantic City this weekend and that I'm going to drop a couple dollars on the craps table. Nobody has to know that. And if you do tell somebody, and the people that are in power oftentimes will test you. They'll give you small bits and pieces of information to see if you're able to deal with that. And if you drop the ball with the small pieces, they know not to give you anything bigger. But if you hold, the small pieces close and you play your position that way, through your silence, through your, that veil of silence, that person who is in power has a tendency to draw you closer because they know that you're going to be quiet on their BS. So you mean to tell me none of you leaders within, Eddie Long's church, using that example, knew that he was raping little boys? Come on, no one's buying that. Nobody's buying it. You were silent because you knew that if you spoke up about it, you knew it was going to cost you.
Yep. Got to pay to play, baby.
Got to pay to play.
Yeah, see, it ain't just about money. It ain't just about money.
Now think about this. If I'm a man and I'm married, and there's this position that's coming up, and I want this position bad. So I'm paying money to these things, and the money's getting kicked up. And, I'm making a little noise. I got a little charisma, very handsome. Dressed real nice. I could preach till the cows come home. But I decide, that I want to start my own ministry. But do I consider my wife's point of view on what she may have to give up as a first lady? Last week we did was it last week? We did the Preacher's Kids show. How do I consider what it's going to do to my children, what they have to give up? We don't consider that. All we look at is, what do I have to gain? And for some, I can honestly say they see, and they don't look at it as something that they're gaining for themselves. They're looking at it as opportunity to really serve God. But there are some who really say, hey, I can get paid doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But in any event, whether you are doing it to serve God or doing it to get paid, do you consider what the other people have to pay, what they have to go through?
No.
I don't think that happens enough because we're only thinking about us. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. We have to sacrifice something. We might have to sacrifice some of our privacy. We might have to sacrifice some of our sanity, a lot of our time. Like Dustin said last when we had him on the show, if that relationship isn't there where there's communication and it's not strong, you're going to pay with your family. In a lot of cases, a lot of families are paying the price because pastors are getting burnt out. I mean,
true.
people are paying, and it's not just, like we said, it's not just money. Relationships take a hit. Mm-hmm.
That's very true. Yeah, especially, I mean, if you're like one of those volunteers, man, that's open, is there, every time the door is open, man, and, you're sacrificing your family. And it does put strain on marriages, man. I mean, I think we've all seen examples of that, if we haven't gone through it ourselves, where, you're putting ministry above your own family obligation. You're missing stuff, with your family because you got to be somewhere chasing the pastor around. And I know people like that currently. I know people like that right now.
Currently. Yep.
Yeah, I know people like that right now. They will do anything to just be, chasing the pastor around and waiting on him hand and foot, waiting on the first lady hand and foot, at the expense of their own relationship. I mean, you're up at 6 a.m. driving to the pastor's house before your family is up. You understand what I'm saying? That type of stuff. You're going to dig your pastor's car out of the snow before you dig your own path out. Your wife's path out. A path for your wife's car. So stuff like that, man. It's just you really have to pay, and it's almost like, man, it's almost like being hazed, man. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like you're trying to get into some organization or whatever. You're doing all of this stuff to get in the game. You're trying to impress somebody else to try to get in the game somehow. And to some people, getting in the game is just having the pastor notice. You understand what I'm saying? So you're paying to play, and you're paying with a lot of times your very own dignity and self-respect.
And check this out. Some people, when they pay to play and they know what they're doing, they know they're paying to play, they know how to play the game. When they get up there and they actually make it and they become successful, they can preach that same doctrine with authority because for them it worked. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It worked for them, so they can turn around and tell you, hey, it worked for me. This is what I did to do this. If you want to get what I got, you got to do what I did. Follow me. I'm making a disciple unto myself.
But let me introduce this aspect also, because what I don't want the listeners to think and to get this unrealistic view is that we're talking about a one-time payment to enter into an exclusive club. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying that you are going to be paying one time to get into the VIP section of the leadership and then you cool once you're in the VIP section. Because if you've ever been into any VIP section, once you get in there, yeah, it's an exclusive group, but everything is more pricey in there. The drinks cost more, the food costs more, everything is more pricey in the VIP section. So once you get into that exclusive aspect of leadership that you paid initially to get in, guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to continue to pay, and the price is going to be even higher now.
Mm-hmm.
So now what are the things that you're going to have to pay? You're going to pay for the looks. Now your decision-making in your own personal life are going to become part of the payment. So now whenever you want to make a decision, you're going to have to ask those who are in leadership, usually the pastor, can you do those particular things? And you're going to ask underneath the guise of seeking, quote-unquote, advice or spiritual guidance or godly counsel. But what you're actually doing is you're asking for permission. So now when you want to date a particular person, so now you can't just go and date Sister Thick Thighs. You got to go ask the pastor, is it okay, or what he thinks about you dating Sister Thick Thighs. And if he gives you some advice that goes contrary to your personal desire, you're going to lean on his quote-unquote godly counsel. Again, you're paying. You've given up your own decision-making. And for men, you've given up your testicles to be a part of the exclusive VIP section of the church. Because if you want to be involved in a business venture, if you want to go on vacation, you have to now give up that decision making in order to be a part of the club.
Yep, you got to decide.
And we've seen it time and time. Go ahead, John.
And I was going to say, you have to give up that decision making on whether what you're going to do for your family is right or not. So you have another choice to make. Do I follow this man and do what he say, or do I go to my son's PTA meeting, or do I make my wife go to all these PTA meetings where I'm missing out on everything, and I got to get secondhand knowledge on what's going on from my wife? Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because that's perfectly okay. But if you truly desire to be there, and you always do this, and you are sad and disappointed because they always do the PTA meeting on Bible study night, or he always got football practice. His football practice is 2 nights a week on your Bible study nights. Now he can't do what he could want to do. You can't be involved in his sports team. Now he can't do what he can do. You barely could go to his games because something always happened to pop up on Saturday mornings when he got to play. It's a special revival coming up. I got to be there.
Man, listen, I know people right now, and let me tell you this. We know that the church is one of the biggest reasons why there is a large number or a large segment of single black women in America. Yeah. We know it is one of the chief reasons the church has an amazing ability to keep black women specifically single. It's undeniable. I know people right now, man, who will not date a particular person within the church until the pastor says it's okay for them to date that particular person. Now, they'll run that intimate detail, that intimate aspect of their life that has an amazing ramifications for their future to their pastor. Run it by them and say, hey, pastor, what do you think? Or even worse, fellas, wait for the pastor to pick out their potential mate.
Oh, Lord, have mercy.
Wow.
I think that's what happened in Drake.
If y'all don't think this stuff is going on, man, if y'all think we're talking crazy, please trust, man. Please trust. We've all seen this stuff go on. And some of you have, too. This stuff is crazy. It's going on in churches. Oh, yeah.
It did. Yep.
So you got to pay to play.
I hope
and it's not just cash. So when you think about that, and for the listeners, think back. If you're in church now, think about all the things that you compromise your personal beliefs on in order to go along, to get along. When you're up there and you're hearing the pastor say some crazy stuff, but you are secretary or you are a minister in the church and you don't want to contradict the pastor, so you just, again, keep your silence because you want to keep your position. Think about that. So you are compromising, or you are paying with your own conscience, with your self-esteem.
And you know what else?
When you let somebody belittle you, when they get up and they talk about you over the pulpit, and anybody who's ever been talked about over the pulpit know where I'm coming from, and you fear defending yourself because he has the microphone. Now your self-esteem is shot. You paid with your self-esteem. Now you feel belittled because this man or woman said something about you that you told them in confidence. Now you displeased them. Now they're blasting you. You came to this pastor repenting, asking for forgiveness. I don't know why you went to him, but you went to him to, quote-unquote, confess your sins one to another, and now the pastor's blasting you over the pulpit. Or how about you made your teenage daughter walk the aisle because she was pregnant? Huh? Y'all hear me? You got this little girl walking the aisle. Castigating her. You know, you got this little girl, this teenager now, walking the aisle in shame to come and ask the whole church for forgiveness because she got pregnant. Where's the boy at? She didn't get pregnant by herself. I don't think she's asexual.
No, she's not.
Where's this boy at? Now, because you want to still be in the children's choir, or because the parents want to seem like they making their daughter do the right thing, you've paid with your daughter's dignity. You've paid with your own self-respect. Man, stand up. Defend your daughter. She was a teenager. She made a mistake. She got pregnant. Guess what? You was a teenager at one time, too. Who made you walk the aisle?
But he won't stand up, because if he stands up, he loses the potential of ever being a part of that exclusive aspect of the church.
You paying with your dignity? You paying with your self?
He's pimped his daughter out, is what he's done.
Lord, have mercy.
He just pimped his daughter out.
Made me mad up in this piece.
But then you think about the time aspect. I know people who spend probably at as much time as at the church as they do at their doggone jobs. They pay with their time, particularly those people, man, who Lord have mercy. You see it so often, man, with one or two extremes in the churches that I've come out of. The people who came out of a real quote-unquote sinful type of lifestyle, you know, your ex-hustlers, your alcoholics, you know, your ex-drug abusers, your ex-prostitutes, whatever. Those usually people that are the sins that we want to highlight the most. You know, they usually tend to spend the most time in the church, putting in the most work at the church, because they equate, because of the way the system is set up, they equate the work that they do within the church with remaining close to God. That if they don't spend that much time at the church, it's more likely for them to fall back into that old sinful lifestyle. But if they actually understood the good news of what Jesus has done, that old lifestyle has been done away with because of what Jesus has done, not because of them mopping and sweeping and buffing the floors at the church. So the amount of time that they put in at the church is phenomenal. So what does that do? The amount of time forces them usually to spend more time giving financially. Then next thing you know, they're emotionally and mentally, everything is connected and intertwined, man. It's a very sad situation when I think of people like, man, where you going? Man, I just got, work this 12. I got to go to the church. We got service at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. I got to get the chairs set up. Bro, you just put in 12, and you have a baby at the crib, and you have a girl at the house. But you're going to neglect those things to get the chairs, the church set up.
Wow. And I can tell you. I can tell you that I lost myself when I got into church. And I think we're on the show before we talked about how when you join a church or when you get saved, you have two conversions. You get converted into the body of Christ, and then you get converted to the club, the church club. And I lost myself. I lost who I was. Now, I don't know if this sounds strange or people might not understand it. I was still me, but I lost who I was. What I did was gave a piece of myself up. I gave up some of my understanding, some of my respect, because these people gave me some respect. They gave me a title. They gave me, I had the ability to get up and do some things. They gave me that. So I lost who I was a little bit. I changed. I didn't do a lot of the things that I desired to do. I cut some, not really ties with friends, but I distanced myself from my friends. I kept a few close. I didn't, outright just stop seeing people and stop, talking to people. I didn't do any of that, but I distanced myself a little bit. I lost who I was. When I came out of church, I started to gain myself back, but I still had that works-based righteousness in me where I thought that if I kept doing this thing, if I need to do this in order to be right with God. That's what they stole from me. That's what the church stole from me. Am I bitter about it? No. Am I over it? Yes. It made me who I am today. That was my experience. That was the process that God chose me to go through in order for me to get me where I am here now today. So there are people sitting in church right now who are experiencing the same thing I experienced, the same thing Rob experienced, the same thing Eldon experienced, the same thing Jonathan experienced. And we hope that our words are getting across that they are helping you to think about some things. We're not trying to change your mind. We're just trying to get you to open up and think about these things. What are you giving up? Christ did not ask you to give up all of these things. He did not ask you to give up your dignity and your self-respect. He did not ask you to turn into a rug. He did not ask you to become a sheeple or a wolf. Mm-hmm. No. He just said follow him. Wow. You believe who he is? You believe what he did? But you're choosing to do all of these things that you think you're doing for him, but he never asked for any of it. Is there anything wrong with doing these things? No, not in and of themselves. Follow him. What are you giving up? What are you paying? I'm finished. I talk too much sometimes.
We know that.
Yeah, we're in agreement.
Phone number 661-449-9951. We'll be glad to take your calls. If you want to chime in and add your voice to this conversation, we'll be glad to have you. 661-449-9951. Go ahead, fellas.
Yeah, man. John, you made good points, man, because I agree, man. I kind of lost who I was, too. And, it just really, to be honest, man, in recent months, the last year or so, started dawning on me like, you completely lost who you were, not that I was a bad person. You understand what I'm saying? I kind of
right. You wasn't
adapted.
Different. You still you.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I adapted my personality to fit the church system, to fit ministry. You understand what I'm saying? There's a difference between doing that, adapting to the church system, adapting to the church culture that you're in, and following Christ. It's two different things. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I was all wrapped up into adapting my personality to fit the church system, to fit the culture that I was in, and the position that I was in ministry, what I was, aspiring to do in ministry. That's what I was chasing after. And like we often say, just like we were talking about, people that are just so, wrapped up in ministry. That's how it was. And you could be so wrapped up in ministry that you miss Christ. And I know it sounds far-fetched. I know people are like, how can you do that? It's very easy. When you're chasing that, when you're just so churchy, when you just got to be in church all the time, you just got to be, like we said, when you're chasing behind other men, other people, trying to gain favor with men, you will miss Christ in the process, because now you got Christ on the back burner, whether you know it or not, whether you realize it or not. Christ, people rationalize and say, well, no, I serve the Lord. Because you know why? Because the system has you trained to think that serving the system is serving the Lord. But it's two different things. So whether you realize it or not, you got Christ on the back burner. When you're one of those people that will, go through hell and hot water just to get into the church building for some type of program, you know what I mean? You really don't even have your own personal affairs in order, but you're seen to the running of the church building. That's a problem. That's a problem. You can't be so wrapped up into ministry that you miss Christ altogether, and it's very possible. And we all know people that are doing it. Some of you are doing it. We've done it at some point, and that's why we're able to talk about it. Thank God, opened our eyes, showed us, what do you? And it took me so long, and it was to the point where people were coming to me. My friends were coming to me like, man, bruh, what are you doing, man? You got to slow down, man. You got to think of something. You got to make some changes. You know what I mean? You got to really think of some stuff. People were like really, people were praying for me, but people, were stepping to me like, Rob, man, bruh, slow down.
Yeah.
And guess what? I kept on doing what I was doing. I kept on being, I was one of the, first people in church, last people to leave. I was one of those cats. You understand what I'm saying? And, thank God he opened my eyes, man. And, I was stubborn about it. It took me a while.
Yep.
But
now,
I finally realized,
See, I was a self-righteous a-hole. I ain't gonna lie.
I
was a self-righteous a-hole. And you couldn't tell me, if you weren't in the same type of prophetic ministry that I was in, oh, boy, you was beneath me.
He ain't lying. He is not lying.
You don't lay hands? What you mean y'all don't do prayer? Y'all got a praise and worship team. Y'all just got a choir? Oh, come on, man.
Oh, this dude came to visit my church and tried to clown me one time.
Wow.
I don't like y'all communions. No, he didn't do that. I'm lying about that. But he did say something about a communion, man. He was like, man, they ain't doing communion right, dog.
You ain't doing communion the way I thought you should be doing a communion? Oh, boy, you couldn't tell. What you mean you smoke cigarette? What? You still listen to secular music? Man.
You listen to gospel rap?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Oh, boy, I had it in for gospel rap, boy. That's the devil. I mean, like I said, you couldn't tell
that was
me.
pre-G Craig.
Yeah, that was even before I even knew who G. Craig was. I was self-righteous. I'm telling you, I was that dude that you would hate see coming and talking about church stuff. I was that dude because I would be at work and any other thing had to do with, oh, that's JB, that's my cat. When it comes to church stuff, oh, boy. Man, you was a sinner and all these other churches is wrong, and my church is the only one doing it right, and you ain't doing like we doing it, and our church ain't really growing because people don't want to hear the truth. We had this little small church because people don't want to hear this. They'll come and go, and I'm telling you, I was drinking the Kool-Aid, and my MCD was at an all-time high. But it took tithing.
Don't forget you was a Dynamite too.
Oh yeah. Juanita Bynum. Ooh. Yeah, I used to love me some JB, boy. I loved me some Juanita because she used to scream, and she was prophetical, if I could use that word. So
you
yeah,
did.
I love
you just
Juanita
used
Bynum.
it. You just used it.
I know. I'm allowed.
Yeah.
Don't be so.
No, I think the thing that I look back at all the time, man, is I always and often have looked back at what I have paid to be a part of the system, and this is long before this show topic, man. This is part of just my individual detox, where I sat back and I looked at what I had lost, what I had given up. The sacrifices that I made underneath the guise of being obedient to Christ. And again, under the guise of being obedient to Christ, because what I was doing was being obedient to a man-made tradition system that had very little to do with Jesus, and if it did, Jesus was just sprinkled on top. I look at what I had given up, the relationships with the intimate relationships, the potential for intimate relationships with people who were in the church and people who were outside of the church, friends that didn't go to church that I rejected because I was in the church. Mentally, the things that I had given up. I wouldn't be involved in certain things. I wouldn't read certain things. I wouldn't watch certain movies underneath the guise of feeling like that's what Jesus required from me.
He's being holy.
And it was a very I placed myself in a cage. I placed myself or allowed myself to be placed underneath bondage. And then underneath that bondage, when I would stray and be involved in those things that went contrary to the man-made system, I would place myself underneath condemnation. So I see that happening so often with people in the church system who find themselves underneath bondage, and they place themselves underneath condemnation because they're doing things that go contrary to what the church system has set up. And what I paid, it used to make me very angry. No lie. I mean, just keeping it 100. I used to find myself very angry at what I paid to be a part of the church system.
Yeah.
But when I got the chance, man, and began to heal and understood what Jesus has done and understand my identity in Him, those anger feelings transition into sadness. And the sadness plays a part in because I still see people paying to be a part of the system. Nothing frustrates me more, man, to this day, than to see Christians underneath bondage and placing themselves underneath condemnation. That angers me to no end to see that happen. I know pastors right now, man, who are literally some of the greatest men that I've ever met. But they will never get to a place where they can do greater, using church speak, greater because they are stuck and trapped in the system.
Mm-hmm.
They won't. They will remain, and I see them sometimes, fellas, and they're tired, they're weary, they're burdened down, they have no true joy, they have no true happiness, they are an absolute wreck. But they get themselves worked up every Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever night their Bible study is, and they get themselves worked up every Sunday to do what they believe God has called them to do. But all they have done, fellas, is paid a huge price to be involved in something that was, guess what? never was God's idea in the first place.
Yeah,
That saddens me, man.
Yeah, hard for a lot of people to accept that one right there, L. But it's the truth.
I got
let me tell
family.
you. Let me.
As we go
ahead,
ahead,
I'm
Rob.
sorry.
Go ahead. No, I just wanted to say, man, I got family who are close to me, who are trapped in the system still, who have a authentic relationship with Christ. But because the authenticity of the relationship with Christ is masked and veiled over the superficial BS of the church system.
Mm-hmm.
They can't even breathe, man. They're suffocating in the church right now. Suffocating.
Wow. It's crazy, man. You know, one of the things that that snapped me out of it, and like I said, it took me a while to realize it, man. It took me a while. I was totally just absorbed, and I was just absorbed by the system, bro. It's just you know, no other way to put it. But one of the things that finally made me, when I really started coming out of my fog and started really doing an honest self-assessment of what I was doing and why and what my motivations were, one of the things that I realized, man, that I was paying as far as a price to be in the system, to try to, you know, be in, you know, one of the people with quote unquote some type of authority and all of that type of stuff, man. This is the price that I was paying. Now, you guys know that I'm divorced, and, you know, we have a, you know, as far as my son, he's 12 now, I was seeing him, you know, on alternating weekends or whatever. And a lot of times, man, on his weekend that he was to, you know, stay with me, it was the same weekend that on Sunday I was in, you know, functioning as an armor bearer, right? I went to this huge church, and we had 3 services every Sunday. And it also got to a period of time where we were having Saturday services too, like one Saturday evening service, and then turn around and have 3 Sunday morning services. Well, bruh, so this is my son's weekend, right? And
oh, wow, bro.
So while I'm doing my armor bearer thing, I got him in children's church for all 3 services. You see what I'm saying? So that basically for that amount of time, for the amount of time that I was supposed to be there, we were supposed to be, you know, like the first people there, you know, waiting for the pastor to get there. We're among the last people to leave, waiting for him to leave or whatever. That amounted to pretty much an 8-hour day, bro. Every Sunday. It pretty much amounted to a full-time, you know, job, like an 8-hour day. And then we go home, and then I'm trying to spend the rest of the afternoon with my son. And, man, when I realized, you know, he started getting older, and I started realizing that, first of all, now I've already wasted a lot of his time. You see what I'm saying? But now he's getting older. He was cool when he was back there with the other kids running around and playing and stuff, but now he's getting older, and I need to be imparting, like, life lessons into this dude and teaching him how to be a man. And I can't do it having him, you know, and here's the thing. He had aged out of the little children's church. So what was he going to be doing for 8 hours while I'm standing up there, you know, mean-mugging people? You know what I'm saying? While I'm standing, what is he going to be doing for 8 hours? He's just walking around with you know, the other teenagers sitting out in the lobby, playing with their phones, you know, just doing this, that, and the third. No, absolutely not. And that's one of those things that I had already paid a heavy price about, you know, wasting a lot of my own son's time. You see what I'm saying? But, you know, I realized at that moment, like, nah, bro, you know, no more. That's one of the things that really snapped me out of it. I mean, he was at an age then when I started coming out that I'm not going to send him to or let him sit out here and just, you know, be left to his own devices while I'm, you know, doing this whole armor bearer thing. I'm not going to make him sit through 3 services. I'm not going to let him roam the hallways and go into the store and this, that, and the third while I'm in here. No, absolutely not. So when you're trying to stay in the game, when you're trying to be in the church game, in the system, you're paying a heavy price. It's always money, but it's not always money. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's always money, but it's not just money. It's always money, not just money. And sometimes, man, like in this case, it's even worse than money. You feel me?
Yeah.
Because I'm giving my son's valuable time to the church system. And that's one of the things that really hit me upside the head. And I was like, bro, this is it. This is it.
All right, we got a caller.
Take that joint, brother.
Area code 704. 704, you're live on Real Talk Radio. What's your name and your comment, please?
Hey, fellas, this is Darius calling from Charlotte. What's going on?
Hey,
What's up, Darius?
What's up, D?
Yeah, I'm listening, man, and I can relate to a lot of what you guys are saying. I feel like I did the whole state of play at the church that I came out of. Like, I run a computer business, and so when anyone from the church needed some computer work, I would do that work for free or little to nothing. And if you were a leader or an elder, especially, there's no way I would charge them to do work. And so my wife would ask me, she was like, how much did you charge so-and-so, elder so-and-so, to work on their computer? I did it for free, That's when the Lord's service. I'm not going to charge them. And she was like, why would you treat them differently than anyone else? And, back then I didn't have the understanding I do now, but it was like, I show a lot of favoritism. I did stuff in a way that I feel like I would get on their good side, or I was doing this for God, when I was really just giving up free labor and being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel like I paid to play with, doing that.
Yeah, that's what it amounts to. That's what it amounts to be honest with you. That's exactly what it amounts to. And Elgin talked about, you hit on the point earlier, El, about the church system keeping, black women single. And when we say black women, that's our frame of reference. But as far as the system keeping black women single, bruh, it's because a lot of times it's women that are more willing to use their resources, a.k.a. money, and provide that, as Darius just put it, that free labor. I mean, man, they're in the kitchen. I mean, they're in the children's ministry. They're doing, women are really holding the church system together. And it's a lot of times these women, the women's kindness and their willingness to work is being taken advantage of by the system, man. Because a lot of times it's those women that are in there too. They're in there when, as soon as the church doors open. They're there, close the place down. They're sweeping up, cleaning up, doing this, that, and the third. They're doing a lot of stuff in the system, man. And it's keeping them single. And guess what the pastors are telling them? Make sure you serve, you're serving. Make sure you're keeping yourself in a position to serve so you're visible, so you can be found. That's a psychological game, man. That's game. Guess what? That's game that's being run on these women in the church. That's game. Make sure you're seen so you could be, make sure you're in the choir. Make sure you're doing this. Make sure you're doing that so somebody can see you so you can be found. That's game. And they're providing a lot of the free labor in a lot of these churches.
Darius, you got anything else you wanted to add, brother?
No, that was it, fellas. Thanks for taking my call, and thanks for all that you guys do, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you, brother. Take care of yourself. And Darius brought up an aspect, man, that I know takes place a lot in the church because I've had friends who were business owners within the church. And a lot of times, man, they would be asked to supply certain things within the church system that the church needed. I had one homie, man, great brother, great brother, great friend of mine, who was a managing supervisor at a party shop, like a party supply shop where they did tents and helium balloons and all those types of things, man. Every time there was a revival or any time there was any type of event, he would be counted on. I mean, it would go without question that he would be the one who was going to supply the tents, the helium, the balloons, all those party things. And a lot of times they were asking him to use his discount or for him to come, to get the hookup somehow. And a lot of times, man, you find people who are putting themselves or their jobs on the line or their businesses in a bad place because they're giving something back to the church that they feel as though they have to for whatever reason, man, because they love the brethren. They love the church people. So in their mindset, in their programming, in their understanding, they feel the need to go and do these type of things, which is absolutely crazy to me, man. It's crazy to me now, looking from the outside in, but I absolutely understand.
Mm-hmm. And here's how somebody who weases their way in works. They'll get a pastor who they know likes money, and then if they got money, they'll start to feed their quote unquote piggy bank, so that they can have a little control over what's going on. That's called the Jezebel spirit. That's what they call it. I mean, that's if you want to attribute anything to a Jezebel spirit, that's what happens. When you're using the authority head, the figurehead, to do your bidding. And that's what some of these people do. These people with money that's in these churches. They get in there and they pay to play, but they're going to play the game by their rules. So they know if they withdraw their financial support, the pastor is going to be, maybe in the bind or something. So they get their pastor into a predicament where he's dependent upon them. And you know what? It happens in the world too. That's why the government protects itself, and they have ethics committees and people to stop this type of stuff from happening. Because they know what happens. They want you to, they'll bribe you, blackmail you, get you caught up. And when you do a security clearance, they check your finances and make sure your finances are right, because they don't want anybody to blackmail you with money.
John, you hitting on something right now, brother. You hit on something just now that was major. There is the ethics committee within the church is the pastor.
He's non-existent.
Who is also
oh yeah, you're right.
Brother, who is usually the one who is the one perpetuating the pay for play mentality. So the person that you're asking to enforce the ethics is also the one who is in charge of the pay for play. So you see what I'm saying? Underneath the guise of doing it for Jesus. And listeners, man, I want to say this to you. If you are somebody who still attends church for whatever reason, you're trapped, you love it, whatever the case may be, hear what we're saying. Hear what we're saying, and then begin to examine yourself accordingly. Okay? Take this as a warning. We have outlined it on numerous occasions in this broadcast already, giving you instance after instance of this actually taking place. This is incredibly real. Some of the cases that we talked about are a little bit more severe and a little bit more detrimental than others. We've seen how this pay-for-play destroys relationships. I can give you instances where this pay-for-play mentality has destroyed marriages. Literally destroyed marriages and ripped marriages right down the doggone middle. Because one wanted to pay and the other one didn't want to. I can give you instances of where people have paid to play and it has cost them tremendously financially. I can tell you instances of females and males in the church who have gotten involved and attempted to pay to play sexually. But what we're trying to get you to understand, it's the system that perpetuates this pay-for-play mentality. This culture is because of the way the system is set up. If you don't want to be involved in the pay-for-play culture, your only recourse is to not be involved in the system. It's unavoidable. If you're in the system, at some point in time, some way, somehow, you will pay. You're going to. That's just the way it's set up. And it's unfortunate because it's not what Jesus has deemed necessary, man. And I keep repeating that and saying it because when we do these topics, listeners, a lot of times you hear us give personal testimonies of instances where we've been involved in the different subjects. And we give it to you because we're trying to prevent you from going down that, man. We're sitting on the wall. We're the keepers of the gate, whatever term you want to use, trying to prevent you from the agony, from the despair, from the weariness, from the burdens that we have carried. And I know sometimes it comes across as if we're just taking shots at the church and we're taking shots at pastors. Man, we want pastors to preach Jesus and Him crucified. That's it. That's it. All that other shucking and jiving and, stuff, that unnecessary stuff that goes on, man, we there's no need for that, man. And I just want you listeners to understand that this is a warning, man. Believe that. This is a warning. It has cost us dearly. It's still costing people that we love and care for. And this message often falls on deaf ears because they're so wrapped up in the system.
That's right.
Yep.
And what about the aspect of, you were talking about the aspect of it costing people their marriages, costing marriages, but what about the pay for play mentality actually going into the arrangement of marriage?
Oh, Rob. Lord have mercy.
You're wanting to get into the system and into the game so bad. You want to get into a position so bad. You want to get next to the pastor. You want to get a paid position. You want to get a title so bad that, listen, y'all, Ozen put it so eloquently, man. We have seen this stuff happen. We're not talking out the side of our neck. We've seen it happen. That marriages are arranged. People are put together for the sake of somebody trying to get in the ministry or the sake of appearances. And guess what? Then those marriages end up failing. So this whole pay-to-play thing, man, it's it's always money, but not just money. And it's devastating. It has devastating ramifications, man.
Let's give them an example, man, of the arranged marriages, how that works. Because I don't think people actually believe that's something that takes place in the modern era. This is how it takes place. You are Brother Steve, who's, quote unquote on fire for the Lord. You're constantly there at the church doing everything. Whenever the doors is open, you're there unlocking the doors so people can get in, yada, yada, yada. You're that dude. But you're also single. Now all of a sudden here comes Sister Sue, who comes into the church. She has a similar mentality. She's on fire, yada, 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 yada. Now, Brother Steve wants to move up. He believes there's a call on his life to be in ministry. One of the things that the church often feels and deems necessary for those male ministers is for them to be married. It's almost like an unwritten requirement. If you're not married and you want to go into ministry, it's okay for you to be, Minister Steve. But if you're trying to climb up into be a pastor, it's almost an unwritten requirement for you to be married. So what the church has a tendency of doing is they have the tendency of placing, Sister Steve and Sister Sue in situations where they're going to find themselves in a sort of relationship. So both of them probably are going to be involved in the singles ministry, which is a complete farce. And we can do a whole show of the singles ministries. But they usually are involved in the singles ministry. So then the church, the first lady, is going to be in Sister Sue's ear, and the pastor is going to be in Sister Steve's ear. And all the while, they're going to be cultivating an environment for Sister Sue and Sister Steve to be involved with each other. But what they don't do is they never allow Steve and Sue to be the determining factor whether or not they want to be involved. Mm-hmm. Since they both have aspirations to be in leadership, they just assume that Jesus is going to work out the rest. But what they fail to address is Steve got tons of baggage from back in the day when he was on the down low. They fail to deal with the fact that Sue has been she's a serial monogamous. They don't deal with those issues. So what they do is they put these two people together, and underneath this notion that Jesus is just going to automatically iron out all the wrinkles, and because they came into church together, and because they're on fire into church together, and because they both want to be in leadership together, that their marriage is going to be successful.
Arranged marriage.
Most of the time, the church is so responsible. Many of these statistics, when you see the statistics are talking about how high the divorce rate is in the church, they always want to say, all these different variables and give all of these reasons. But what they never want to talk about, how the church is often directly responsible for Christians ending up in divorce. They never want to talk about that.
Nope. That pressure. And I can give a real-life, real-time example of churches trying to play matchmaker in arranged marriages. Now, mind you, my mother-in-law is 68 years old. She is widowed now for 6 years. Why are they trying to pressure her? Because she's been, hanging out with one of the deacons at the church, one of the older deacons. And they friends. I guess you could say they girlfriend or boyfriend. My mother-in-law is adamant that she is not ever getting married again. She's adamant. But she keeps telling me that they keep trying to put her and make them get married. They keep the pastor trying to prophesy. Oh, I see wedding bells in the future. All this different stuff. They trying to make them get married. And my mother-in-law is like, I'm never getting married again. Because she was in an abusive relationship. And, she was with this man since she was 17 years old. And he just died a few years ago. So she was with him longer than she wasn't with him. And they are trying to make her marry this other dude. Not saying you better do it, but just a little slide, little comments. And it's not just the pastor, it's the other congregants too. And the other ministers. I see a ring in the future. All this little subtle stuff. And I was like, you need to put your foot down and tell them up front that you are never getting married again, and they need to stop telling you this stuff. But I know my mother-in-law, and that ain't in her character. She ain't going to say nothing. She just going to sit there and smile and giggle it away. I couldn't do it. But this is a real-time, real-life example that I'm not experiencing, but I know of personally where they're trying to arrange this marriage. Personally. And my mother-in-law sitting there, she's sacrificing her dignity just to be able to fit in this church. Because she's looked at as one of the mothers of the church. And she's faithful. She's been there since the beginning and blah, 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 blah. But it goes on and on. And if you guys don't mind, I want to move the show on to another different aspect of pay to play, since we almost run out of time. What about the guys who say, I won't play unless I get paid? Now, these are the guys who usually have paid a lot already in order to play. Now they've reached the pinnacle. and they can charge you to come to their church and preach. And if you don't meet their price, guess what? They ain't coming. So I need you to pay for me, my wife, and my entourage, or my staff to travel with me, because they know my anointing. Y'all don't know my anointing. Your staff, so I need my staff to come with me because they know my anointing and how I operate. So I can't really say make you pay this much, but we just gonna call it an honorarium. I need to stay up in this room. I need these kind of flowers. I need this kind of Fiji water. I need these kind of chocolates. So many flowers for my wife. We need. I only ride in black SUVs from the airport. So all this to come preach at my church. That's another pay-to-play mentality, pay-to-play aspect that we have to look at. These honorariums, that they demand this much money in order for me to come and preach at your church. Now, what's wrong with this, guys? What is wrong with this type of pay-to-play? If you ain't paying, I ain't playing. What's wrong with that? Speak on it, somebody, because I keep going.
Yeah, I can too. I'm gonna let somebody else go ahead and chime in. Rob, LL, John, somebody go ahead and take the reins, brother.
Man,
because I ain't paying nobody nothing.
Right, paying to hear the gospel, man. You know what? It's another one of those things. We actually did a show talking about the church artists, and it's basically you're paying for a performance. You're paying for a touring speaker, you know what I mean? And he's going to come and bring his best performance. He's going to bring one of his favorite sermons that he's preached at his church that he feels like he preached the house down. So he's going to bring that, and he's going to put on his best performance, and that's what he's getting paid for. I mean, it's crazy just that you sit and think about it, man. Why are you paying to hear the gospel? Oh, wait a minute, because a lot of these pastors ain't preaching the gospel. So you're paying for these guys to perform, especially when they're a big name, or when they got a name, you know, for themselves, man. Oh my goodness. You know, you don't have any problem paying then. You know what I mean? So it's all performance, man. It's just like it's no different than you getting money together to pay a rapper to come and perform at a local club or something. It's the exact same thing. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. You're paying for a performance. And
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Right.
Take that call there, Nathan. Is this not what you come for? The pageantry? Right. Nathan, wake up.
Yo, what's that?
Take the call, bro.
We got caller. I think it's a good friend, Det Shepherd. Det Shepherd, you are live on Real Talk Radio. What's up, bro?
Man, I really enjoy the conversation. I love this topic because I heard a pastor say one time, you know, about the big show blowing through town, you know, and we're going to get all this money together. People are putting money in that they wouldn't normally ever put in because the big names come into town. And this pastor simply said, look, you know, you're getting pumped up about the celebrity showing up and going to put on the big show. What about your pastor, the one who's there when you pick up the phone when your grandma dies? What about the one that's serving? Assuming that pastor's serving. You know, and I had a conversation about this last night about celebrity. It happened to be non-church celebrity, and I got shut down. And called 3 or 4 different ugly names because the person said that's what this show is about, and how dare you say that, you know, we or whatever the case may be. This was the dude that ran the whole network. He happened to be on the air. He was mad as hell, and he said, mute that MF, and they cut me off. I'm like, wow. I struck a nerve. I didn't mean to. I wasn't there to be ugly. But I was just saying, why do we live vicariously through these people? They happen to be talking about Whitney Houston. You know, and I wasn't digging in on Whitney or nothing. I was just talking about this whole worship thing that we do. And they just didn't really see that broader picture. They were stuck on, you know, what's going on right now in the media. And I'm like, you know, come on, people. I mean, why would I be so enamored by, let's say, a big-name preacher, and maybe I got all his books or her books and tapes, and I'm just, oh, man, TD's coming to town, whoever it is. I'm not picking on anybody. Why would I want to live through those people vicariously? And here's my suspicion is the answer. Because I don't have anything going on in my own life that's worthy of my own attention.
Wow.
And you can take that to the bank all day long. And people do not want to hear that. It hurts to hear that. It strikes a nerve because they have to look inside. I have to do it too. Popular speakers, 10, 15 years ago, I would study them. There's 5 or 10 big ones, the biggest paid ones. And after a while, I was like, I'm never going to meet these people. Yeah, they're nice. Yeah, there is some wisdom. I could buy a couple tapes and a couple of books. But honestly, look for somebody local. Look for somebody you can talk to and have lunch with and have coffee with and call every now and then. And go, hey, can you mentor me? Can you help me? Can you, it's all about the hype. And people will never meet people that will really never personally influence our lives, although they can through their writings if there's wisdom there. But this is an important topic because the church is, I've personally worked up there in Hendersonville, Tennessee, up at TBN. They've got a big broadcasting studio up there. I've been in it. I've worked in it. And I've shared this before on your show. I didn't know the format. All I knew when I moved from the Mississippi Delta was this is a job in TV and I needed work. So I showed up to interview and I thought, God, this looks like Hollywood now. I was okay with that. I was there to work. I didn't care if it was a church thing, although at that time I wasn't all, going to church or nothing. I'm just like, I need a job. And fortunately the manager was nice. But when I got up there, it was glitz, it was glamour, it was ridiculous. But I learned a lot of really good stuff there. I gleaned some good wisdom from some people. There were some shady ones, there were some good ones, and there were some in between. But I've seen them roll out the red carpet because when those singers come in to record and tape, I'm here to tell you, buddy, the buffet gets rolled out, baby, and we'd eat the leftovers. Whatever was not eaten, and it was good food. It was, we're not going to throw this out. So we had lunch for 2 or 3 days, man.
And this probably was what they required for them to come there, right? That was one of the requirements.
Yeah, and I think it was it got to that. It definitely got to that. So the bigger the name, of course, kind of the bigger the rollout. There were some lesser-known acts that were fairly popular in Christian music that I wasn't really familiar with because I wasn't into Christian music or anything while I was working there. But some of the names, I'm like, man, I know Michael. I knew who Michael English was, not personally, but I've certainly heard of him. And he was a very good singer at the time. I don't know where he is these days, but it was. And there was. You talk about professional equipment, buddy. TBN, they don't spare any dough now. Things have changed a little bit. Paul's gone and all. But back to the part about this worshiping stuff. My friend personally was an usher up there when Benny Hinn rolled into town. He said, Greg, now it's an auditorium. This is like a movie theater type auditorium. I've been in it. And he said, Greg, there were so many people packed in there. I don't know if we violated the fire code or not, but he said we had to lock the doors. And he said people were trying to push in through the front door. And he said, I had a guy put a $100 bill up on the glass just so I'd let him in. And he told him, he said, I can't let you in. There's too many people in here. That's celebrity. That's pure celebrity. Anyway, listen, thank you so much for opening the mic. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks a lot. Yep, thanks a lot.
All right. The man, Dat Shepherd. Yep. Tell you, man, these people they got this money, and if you ain't paying, they ain't coming. That's the other side of the pay for play. Once you make it and you've paid your dues, you can request what you want to request. I think TJ and them did a show about that, and it kind of went viral. It was with Mars Hill, and that was part of the things that helped shut Mars Hills down because this guy was on the show, and he was talking about how T.D. Jakes wanted all these different type of white flowers, and they spent, like, all this money just to bring him there, and he only preached, like, 30 minutes. And they spent thousands and thousands of dollars to bring him there, and he preached for 30 minutes. And they said it wasn't inspiring, it wasn't nothing like you see on TV, and they spent all this money. And this was what he required, what T.D. Jakes required. You want me to play? Oh, you got to pay. So when you reached enough level, when you paid enough dues, when you paid enough, then you can demand. And I think this is where a lot of people try to ascend to that level. And like that Shepherd was saying, this level of celebrity. See, when you're a celebrity, you can demand. You can demand a price.
Right.
You can demand a price. And a lot of these small-time preachers want to be the big-time preachers. So they practicing now. Are they practicing? And they going to give you a little love offering because back when I was just a little young pup in the ministry starting up, I even got little honorariums. It wasn't nothing. I don't think I got no more than $100. But, you know, and then my dumb butt, I tithed. The church gave me $100. I gave them $10 right back. Like, here's the tithe. I've done it. I'm telling you. They gave me a little $100 honorarium. I wasn't requesting it. I didn't even say that. I wasn't even expecting it, but they gave it to me, and I gave them $10 back. I'm tithing. I want to be blessed. Yeah. I'm telling you. That's the other aspect that you have to look at. The celebrities, big-name pastors, and they ain't coming if you ain't playing. But Paul said he make the gospel without charge. Without charge.
That's right.
So when you reach the level where if you got a gift and if you have a word, that if people have to pay you to get it, you are a salesman. You're a salesman.
That's what takes place in the business.
Yeah, exactly. You're a salesman. So because of this small church don't have enough money, they can't hear what T.D. Jakes has to say. Oh, they can buy the CD, but they can't get my person. Yeah. Come on, man. Wake up, people.
Yeah. Final thoughts, fellas?
Final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
I'll go first. If you're still in church, just think about some of the stuff that was said here on this show. Just think about it. You know, how much are you paying? How much are you willing to pay? How much are you willing to continue to pay in order to reach that next level, in order to be recognized by the church, in order to be pleasing to the pastor and the leadership? How much are you willing to continue to pay? Because believe it or not, you are paying something. And it's not the same thing as sacrificing for God.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
It's not the same thing as sacrificing for God. Because you are sacrificing for a system that don't give a crap about you. So just think about it. Think about it. Next.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback off that, man, and just, say make sure you're being honest with yourself. Just do an honest, assessment of what you're doing and why. Do an honest assessment of what you're doing and why. Who are you actually serving? What's your motivation? I mean, where's your heart in this thing? You have to do a very honest look at yourself. Take a very honest look and assess a lot of things. Are you just going above and beyond necessarily? Are you thinking you're serving God, but you're really serving man? You're really serving the system? When that stuff starts to really, become clear and come into focus, it'll change your life. It'll change your life. So make sure you're just doing, taking a real deep look at yourself. Next.
If you don't
My last
pay
words,
to play.
man. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay. If you're going to pay to play, then understand the game. Understand the rules. Understand what you're getting yourself into. Ain't nothing like paying for something, and then when you get what you paid for, it ain't what you thought it was. So be careful of what you're doing. And like we said earlier, we're not just up here talking out of the side of our necks. We're talking from experience. We're talking about things, not what we know, what we've heard, but what we've experienced. And what we've experienced does not line up with what we see in Scripture. We are following an Old Testament, Old Covenant style of worship when we should be following a New Covenant style of worship. To maintain that Old Covenant style of worship, you got to pay.
Yep.
I would just ask you to ask yourself, what is motivating me to do what I'm doing here? Is it motivating me to, am I motivated to do these things in order to be accepted, propelled, move forward, or to remain even? Or am I doing this because of the grace, love, and mercy that Jesus has bestowed upon me? It's a really difficult self-examination, but I believe it's a part of the self-examination process that every believer should be asking them who is within the institutionalized church system. And then to understand who you are in Christ and to realize that when Jesus said it was finished, that's what he meant. That's it.
LL?
I'll venture to say, for anybody out there that is in this system, and by system, of course, we mean IC, put your money back in your pocket and see who loves you in that system. See who's going to be by your side, who's going to call you, who's going to reach out to you. For the moment you see that, when that starts to just drop on you and that hurt comes, you were hurting all along. You just didn't know it until you actually took away what the system needed to survive. And get out of these systems. That goes for anybody that's in them. Stop paying for names. You know, pretty much Rob just said, you guys are paying people like they're pretty much rap artists. That's pretty much all it is. There's no specific anointing that's going to make this or that person better than whoever else is at a pulpit who's at a small church, who goes around and does things in the community that you don't see. But you see this big name, and all of a sudden that's what you got to pay for. And you have no idea that you're doing exactly what the world is doing. And I know y'all like to quote that a lot. I'm not out there like the world, but yes, you are. Just take the money away and see where it goes. I promise you'll see another side of reality.
Yep. Well.
Go ahead and pray us out.
There it is. You talking to me?
Yeah, man. I think he was, bro.
Was he talking? Did he actually say my? Oh, I'm sorry.
Talking to me?
You talking to me? You talking to me? Gracious and Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to your people, Lord, and hopefully encourage somebody to take a look at their motives, take a look at their own heart and see where they are, and to just assess, what's going on, what they're putting into the system, and whether or not they're really chasing after you, and whether or not they're just, chasing after man, Lord God. And we just hope somebody is helped by this show. We just hope that it's shared and a lot of people are helped by it, once we put it on YouTube and once we, upload it into all of our various forms of communication, Lord, that it continues to open people's eyes. And we just once again, we praise you, Lord. We thank you again for this opportunity. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
We're out of here.
Now, next week, ladies and gentlemen, we will not be having a show next week, but we will be having a special show at a special time on Wednesday, this upcoming Wednesday. The 11th. That's right. We are taking over the Church Folk Revolution Radio. Real Talk Radio was doing a takeover show this coming Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and we will be talking about understanding the covenants. Woo! That's going to be a great show, a great show. So if you don't have nothing to do or you're off work or,
Man, even if you do got something to do and you got work, call off.
Call off work.
Right.
It's going to be a great show. Understanding, because a lot of people don't understand the Old Covenant, the New Covenant, the Old Testament, New Testament, and what they mean to us now and what they meant back then, and how God sees and deals with us according to the covenant. So make sure you join us this Wednesday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, 11 Central, right here. Same phone number, same bat time, same bat channel. Don't forget to check out our YouTube page. Don't forget to check out the website, www.forrealtalkradio.com, and you can reach us there if you got any questions, comments, concerns, criticism, or whatever. So until Wednesday, and don't forget, no show next Sunday. We out. Peace.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Real Talk Radio. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel and Facebook page, or drop us a line at 4realtalkradio@gmail.com. That's the number 4, realtalkradio@gmail.com. Man, send your comments, concerns, criticisms, or show ideas. We would love to hear from you. Till next week, we out.